So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Q2 2022 system demo. I'm Jean-Michel Becard, the head of a portfolio office here at the EMA. And let's start with some little housekeeping. So this session is being live streamed, is being recorded, and will be made available through our corporate website in the coming weeks, usually in the next 2 weeks, and will be available to all the people who didn't have a chance to attend this morning. So then during this presentation, this demonstration, even you will have a chance to give some feedback from Slido, which is our tool of choice to get feedback from a large audience. And you will have to consent to the processing of your personal data, though you can opt to remain anonymous if you choose to. And now let's go in the art of the system demo. So I will remind you quickly what's a system demo. So that's really the part of our new governance, new project governance, being lean and agile, and that's part of the transparency goal. So what you will see during this demonstration, it's what has been built in the last 3 months. What we call a program increment. It's an optional ceremony. It's recorded and will be published, as I already said, on the corporate website. And it's what we call a value stream level ceremony. Today, we are still in a pilot phase or in a transition phase, so we are still on the smaller scope of what it should be, sorry. So I will give you a high-level tour of what our value streams are to give you where we are. So we have divided our portfolio of projects into 5 value streams, grouped by business process, around business process and systems. Today, we are really around research and development, product lifecycle management, and monitoring. That's what we can call the core business of the agency. Of course, we have the supporting value stream like the technology lifecycle management and information security and the agency management. But today, the system demo is really around research and development. That will be the emergency task force support demo. The product lifecycle management will show the DADI and PMS, and monitoring will show you the iSpoke registration tool. And now, a little bit of agenda. We will start by the application form DADI, the human variation form, and I will give the floor right away to Christina and Noel for their demo. To you guys. Sorry, I forgot that's the point. So the next system demo will be in 3 months from now, at the end of our Q3 program increment, and it will be the 28th of September 2022. Thank you. To you, Noel and Joey, sorry.
Yeah, just very briefly, if we could jump to the next slide, Emily. So we have, we're presenting for 3 value streams today. We've actually directed questions to each of those teams to separate Slidos. So for questions about DADI and PMS, please use the, #3954217 Slido with passcode EMA. For R&D, so that'll be indeed on the emergency task force, please use the QR code, or indeed go to slido.com for with #805356 with passcode EMA. And indeed for monitoring on shortages, you can go to #1905982 for your questions. We'll, as previously, we'll be answering as many questions as possible as they come in. We will prioritize questions that are on the topic of what we're demoing. We will record all other questions. No promises indeed to having indeed a full Q&A shared, or indeed having all the questions answered by the end of the session or after the session, but we'll take everything into account. And if you have any questions about the session in general, please use any of these Slidos, and we'll make sure to get to them. And of course, make sure to upvote any questions that are the same ones you have. So we avoid duplicates as much as possible, and we understand what are the most priority questions for our viewers.
Thank you. I will be presenting very quickly our Quarter 2 PI objective roadmap. So if we can please move to the next slide. So I'm Christina Pusari, the product owner of Daddy. So if we look at the achievements that we have done, so the biggest piece of work is the access management improvement. We'll be demoing that feature today, and I will do that demonstration. We've also done two smaller features that actually contain multiple different user stories under them. I'll be demonstrating very briefly the finalization improvements and the improvement of types of changes. We've also been working on the fire export, where we've delivered quite a few parts, as you can see, manufactured item, pharmaceutical product, ingredient, and ingredient document. And we've also been working on the PDF export. We will not be demoing the fire export and the PDF export today. So I will take over the screen now just to give you a live demonstration very quickly. Just one moment, and I'll be sharing my screen. So I hope you can all see my screen. So to save time, I've already moved into the section where the changes were introduced. So this is a variation form that contains centrally authorized products. I'll zoom in a little bit.
Christina, would you be so kind as to zoom in just a couple of times? I think.
More?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. So as you can see, the changes are what we have implemented are done here. So in this case, I have selected twice the scope B to set, which is actually where I'm also demonstrating that it's now possible to select variation type 1B unforeseen. It is now possible if you have selected same scope twice, purposely or unpurposely, and if you need to change, it is now possible to go here and either edit the scope or delete the scope. And it doesn't delete both of the scopes, only one of them, the one that you have decided to delete. So as you can see, now that we refresh, you can see that there's only one of those scopes that has been selected. The other one has been deleted. And then also another thing to show was that it's now possible to select type 2 Article 29 variations. Then the second part is on the finalization. As I mentioned, so finalization improvements. So in here, this is for centralized procedures or products that contain centrally authorized products. So if you have selected one of the summary of product characteristics, mock-up specimens, package leaflet, or labeling, you will then get an additional section in the declaration. But additionally, we have also included here two new annexes, restrictions posed by member states and list of all authorized presentations. There were also supposed to be some more namings of the annexes in here. Unfortunately, that is not fully implemented, so we will be doing that in a future release. And here, as I mentioned, so if I have selected, for example, summary of product characteristics, then there are three new tick boxes under the declaration. We have also made some minor changes into the proof of payment section, where it's now possible to edit this area here. And additionally, if this was now a work sharing application, which it isn't, you would also be able to select the the payment authority. Additionally, for nationally authorized MRP DCP, there's the parallel variation section, but I will not be demonstrating that today. But these are the parts that we've done with on the other features. I will now be handing over to my colleague Noel, who will demonstrate the main part, which is the access management. Over to you, Noel.
Thank you very much, Christina. Actually, I'm going to give the presenter back to Emily. Emily, would you be so kind to please present the slides again? Right, thank you very much. I'm going to present the access management that was redone in the last quarter. And mainly, well, first of all, I will give you an overview of what are the roles that can be requested. And second, I will go through the principles and then bring a few examples of how access management can be set up. And then I'm going to give you the live demo in the system. So first of all, this is a one-pager that you can look at. You can, if you want, you can take a screenshot. These are the roles that you can request. They are split into applicant roles and regulator roles, meaning you're either part of a pharmaceutical industry or an applicant, somebody who gives an application, or you're a regulator and want to test out or just check the system, have access to the new PDF, the new creating of the PDF. For applicants, you have 3 roles that apply to what you can actually do in the system. So 3 levels of access, which is the contributor, the manager, and the coordinator. And there is one role which is called admin. It is the IRIS/EF industry admin. It is named like this because it is an existing role, meaning if you are already an IRIS admin today, you will get access also to providing roles to the EF application. Now, we have also introduced a role above that. So assuming you are a smaller company and there are, well, we are creating more and more admin roles. Like we now have the IRIS EF admin role, but there is also the clinical trials admin role. There is the SPOR admin role. So if you don't want to have separate admins, you can just request the external organization administrator who can approve all of your requests. But if you are a larger company and you want to split them, this is also possible. So we have tried to accommodate as many use cases as possible. And this was the result. For regulators, there's only one role in the system, which is the EF competent authority user. This gives you access to creating the application and listing all the products within your country, but you cannot be added as a co-author. This is a precaution so that nobody can be added by accident and a member of an NCA is not able to add a product to a real application that applicant would not have access to usually. There is the admin roles for the regulators, and then there are assistant roles for the EMA. This is mainly for the service desk. The service desk will be able to see all products, which is a very restricted role, but this is necessary in order to assist if there are any issues with applications. So if there are issues, a member state will most likely not be able to help you with most of them. So there will be a proper service desk and they have access to all these products and can actually help you. Now I'm going into details of the 3 roles that you can have as an applicant. And for that, I would like to give an overview of the key principles on the next slide. So one key principle is that one application or one data set is created by a user for a specific MAH or for what we call reference MAH, and that application that is created belongs then to this MAH. Same goes for the products. products are, although authorized on a specific location, they belong to the MAH owning all of these locations. So you have a product on each of your locations, the MAH will see all of them. If you're a user to that MAH with the specific role, you can actually see this. The other thing is that you are either an applicant or an NCA, and for every organization that you are affiliated with, you have a different role now. So you can actually be a consultant working for 10 different companies and having different levels of access for each one of them. That was the problem we had before. If you could only have one role, independent of how many companies. And this is why, well, one of the main reasons why we had to do this. Now, I'm listing here the manager and the contributor role because these are the key differences between, well, the two major roles. Manager being able to see products of an MAH and contributor not being able to see products of an MAH. This is the main difference. There are some other slight differences, but I want to focus and stress that part. The coordinator and the manager are nearly the same roles. The only difference being a coordinator can see all applications of an MAH and the manager can see only the applications he creates. Now, there are different ways of providing access to another user, and these are demonstrated on the next slide. So we can either select, you can always select to add a co-author. Now you add a co-author from your organization or from a different organization. If you add him from your organization, the system will list the people that, for one, are working in your organization, and second, you have been working before. So if you have added them correctly in IAM with a contributor role, for example, they are in that list that I will demonstrate in the live demo, and you can just multi-select anybody who you want to work with, click OK, and it's done. So this is a very, very fast way to share your applications. And although there is some initial effort to set these up, once it is set up properly in IAM, it is very quick to use. The second scenario is if it's not yet set up in IAM properly, meaning you want to add a co-author you have not been working with before. So he's from a different organization. This organization has not been, well, at least that person has not been working with you. You would still click on add co-author, but then you would have to search that person via email address. And you need to type in the exact email address. We cannot list people from other companies. This was taken out. We had that feature before that was a bit disconcerting. Now, second, once you have added that person, there is a notify button now in the portal that you can click, and an email will be sent to this person asking him to request the level of access he wants to have. So they have the option of either requesting contributor, manager, or coordinator, depending on how much, and then your admin will decide how much access does he want to give. So if the person you want to work with is somebody of your subsidiaries, maybe somebody very trusted, you can give him a manager role to also see your products, or a contributor role if you work with him very closely. But if it is somebody you are working with on an ad hoc basis, you give them the coordinator role, which allows you to work with, the contributor role, which allows you to work with them, but you do not share any information with them, apart from explicitly selected applications. Now, I'm going to go through about 5 examples in ways of setting yourself up. I am sure there are 100 more in the world outside. I've tried to find maybe the most commonly used, but if your example is not here, and please think of how you want to set yourself up, I believe anything is possible. So I'm going to go through the first one, which is on the following slide. This is the example of co-authoring with a user that is already associated. So I'm assuming you are a former user A, you are a manager within your company, you have a colleague who is also a manager within your company. You both don't have a coordinator role, because if you had, sharing would not be necessary. You would both just see each other's applications. So if you're just a manager, that means the application is shared on an ad hoc basis, and you can just select your user, click on Add Co-Author, and that user will see the application plus the product that is associated to it. That's the easiest example. Now, the next example on the next slide is unfortunately in the wrong order. Yeah, let's take an easier one to start with. So co-authoring on an ad hoc basis. This means the example would be for a consultancy. I just realized we do have some outdated slides here. Never mind, please bear with me. So if you have a consultancy, you are the former user A, you have a manager within your organization. You can create the application, you have access to all of your products. Now assume one product is called product A and the other one is called product B, and not A as well. Then the consultancy would be added as a contributor to your organization. And they do not get access to your products. But if you, as the creator of that application, you share that application, you have added product A, the consultancy will then see product A, but they will not see the product that is not associated. So this is the way you work with people you want to share some products with, but not all of them. Can we then please go to the next slide? This one would be the work sharing example. So the example is you are working with another company, maybe for this one time, two big pharma companies work together, or at least two pharma companies who usually don't see each other's products. So both of them have a list of products. Both of them have a manager role within their own company. Both of them see their products. So pharma user A sees product A and B. Pharma user B sees product C. But now the first user wants to add the second one for a work sharing, meaning they need to associate the contributor role to this MAH, which does not give them access to any of the products. It only gives them the possibility to add them as a co-author. So this contributor role is assigned once, and once this is set up properly, you can always add them as a co-author. If you do, so in this case, an application was created, so user A added product A, and then invited user B. User B goes ahead and adds his own product, so product C to the application, meaning user A sees product A and C, and user B sees product A and C. But user A also sees product B, which user B doesn't. So this is the way how everybody has his own list of products, but you have a shared list if you share the application, and everybody can see the products that have been added to the application, but not the products listed and belonging to that company. So this is the work sharing example. I would then hope to see the next slide. Let's see which one it is. All right. The other examples, unfortunately, did not make it. So there are other ways of doing this. We could maybe, we will upload the presentation, I believe, with a few of the other examples. So for now, I will just show how this is done in the live system. And I will take over the screen share. And give you a live demo of the application itself. So this is the portal as it is when you log in. We are currently doing some redesign. Not everything has finished yet, so we're not demoing how, well, the new layout, but some of it, of course, can be seen. As this is in the middle of development, we are demoing here as in the middle of a sprint. Half of the things are done, so it is not as beautiful as it can be. So please bear with me here. I'm creating a new application, as you see, directly from the menu without going to my actual list because it is faster. I'm choosing the initial, so the variation one, and I'm choosing one of my reference MAHs. Now, I myself, unfortunately, only have UAT, so test organizations. They're not real ones, they're just set up. So the name here, of course, would be a real name of an organization. Mine are just called UAT org, and then they have a number. So imagine this is your company name. I will copy paste it because I'm going to use this in a friendly name. It shows your address, your org ID, and your log ID. If you have two locations, you will see them twice because you do the application based on one location. But for your product selection and for your access, it doesn't matter which location you choose. This is merely just so we know which location is sending the application. I'm going to select the first one to see, and then I can say this is my demo application with this UAT org, and I click on Create and Next, which will then bring me to the screen to add a co-author. Adding a co-author, so I am there as a user in this application. I'm here with my name, my contact email address. I am, for this organization, a coordinator, meaning I see all the applications. And then I have a status of that role, meaning it is affiliated, meaning it's valid. Now, we've added here a little I button to explain what are the different statuses. So affiliated means you have access. Removed means that user has worked for this company at some point in time, but has been well, changed company or is no longer working for this company, meaning the IM role got removed. And we will cascade this down to applications, meaning if he now works for a different company, he no longer has access to the applications that were shared with him before. Because you shared with a user assuming he worked for that company. If he does not work for that company anymore, we will cascade down and remove all the roles, but we will keep the role just as removed in the application. So you do have the audit that at some point in time that user had access to this application. The third part is the pending one. Now, your invite can be pending if you have chosen somebody from a different organization who is not yet set up in IM. Meaning you can already invite them, but only once they're properly set up in IM, they will also get access. At least for you as the person inviting, it is no more work because they will automatically get that access. Now I'm clicking here on Add Co-Author to see who I can actually add. So right now there are some friendly testers here who I could just multi-select and say these are the people I work with. So these are the people affiliated to my organization, either as a manager, as a contributor. I would see the role here. If they're a coordinator, it wouldn't even show up because I don't need to invite them. They already have access. So this would be the way to add somebody from my own organizations. Now, if I want to add somebody from a different organization, there is a separate tab here, which is called From Other Organizations. Now, unfortunately, because of GDPR, etc., I can't just list all organizations here. What I have to do is type in the email address and click on search here. This is explained in the little I button. And then what I see right now, and we have demoed this to our friendly user group as well, to our experts, we show, I don't know, maybe just a little bit too much, but we thought it was necessary to select the right person. So we will also see some feedback in the UAT if this is too much, if we should take out the next table. Because now that I have searched for B. Paris, I see the full name, which is all right. I see the email address, which I have typed in. I also see who they're working for, meaning I can see the two organizations here. One of them, so I see who I invite. And I also see, okay, if they're part of this org or the other one, these are the products they could contribute to my application. it is important, but I also see that it can be disconcerting because I can now see who this person works for if I type in the correct email address. So let's see if we keep that feature. Then I would just click save and they get added. Now, if they get added from a different organization, what I will see is that their status is pending. And once they are then set up as a contributor or a manager, this would change to affiliated. So this is the way to invite other people. And the way to set yourselves up is in IAM, so which is register.ema.europe.eu. And there you manage it once. And then on an ad hoc basis, you enter your application, invite whoever you want. Now, if people are pending, meaning they need to go to IAM, and how do they know they need to go there? You click here on the notify button. And what it will do is it will prepare an email for you to that person with a subject and already filled in text, asking them to please go to register.europa.eu for this organization name, and then this is the portal link. So please request the role that you want and the access that you want. And then I click on send and this email is sent. Of course, I can change the email if I want to. And that's it for access management. I hope it is a little bit clearer. We are uploading this, so you can always watch it again if this was too fast. I know we only had 20 minutes time. But of course, we will also create documentation and make this publicly available so you can look it up on how exactly you want to set up your company. We will be providing more examples, so bear with us there, and I hope this is understandable. I will now look at the questions in Slido, and while my colleagues are presenting, I will try to answer as many as I can. Thank you. Back to Emily. If you're talking, we cannot hear you.
If not, I can take over because I think this is already a PMS part. So
yes, thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
Handing over to you.
Thank you, Noel. So Emily, can you please go to the next slide? Okay, so in this slide, it's an old one. You have already seen this slide. Here, what we are showing is which are the epics and some of the features we are working with in the PMS team. You can see that we have 4 different epics for the moment, which are the SIAMET integration and Article 57 integration. What we are doing with those epics is migrating the information that we have in SIAMET and in Article 57 into PMS, but not only that, we are also working on the delta. So any change that is done in Article 57 and also in SIAMET, we are also pushing those changes into PMS, and this is one of the things that we are going to demo today. Moreover, we also have another epic, which is the Idmp implementation. Here we are working with everything related to the API connection, how to control, how is the access management, done in the API, and this is something that we are going to demo as well. And we are also working on the updates on the EUIG, mostly on chapter 2 and chapter 8. That is going to be, a new update will be released soon. We also have another epic. For the moment, we are not going to demo anything for this epic, which is the support to the end-to-end regulatory process. We are not working, I mean, we have started working on this, but it's just analysis. So there is nothing to demo on this specific epic. If we can go to the next slide, as well as Daddy, we are going to present what we have achieved during this quarter. So as you might know, we have done the first run of the external UAT for the migration of data from SIAMET XBMPD into PMS. We are going to start the second round in a couple of weeks. So that helps us to know which are the bugs that we need to fix for the data load from the different sources, how the migration is working, etc. And it's really valuable information that we are using. As part of this first round of the external UAT, we have been resolving several bugs that we have found for the initial load into PMS. We have also started working on the Article 57 to PMS deltas. There are different scenarios like nullification and validation, etc. Today we are going to show one of those scenarios, which is the update, and in the future we will be showing you more use cases like transfers, etc. We have also started with the IDIFS life cycle, which is another feature that we have for this PI for Q2 2022. Andre will show in a couple of minutes the security and access management that we have implemented in the API. And we have also started the discussion of 2 new possible epics because we want to start working on the PMS user interface, etc. So the scope of the demo today is, first of all, the security and access management to the PMS API. Andre will explain you more about that. And then what we will do is we will show you one use case for the XBMPD to PMS Delta. So we will be updating one product in XBMPD, and then we will show you that this change is reflected into PMS. So the next slide is actually the last slide, so the demo. So we will start with Andre showing you the security and access management into the API. So Andre, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Marcos. I'm Andre Idu, Platform Architect for the Sporn platform, and I will be demoing the access management for the PMS API first, and then we can move to the update of a product from XBMPD to PMS. Let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, I hope that is visible for everyone. So I'm using here a tool for accessing APIs called Postman, where I have configured the PMS APIs that I will be showing you. So for access management, we have 2 use cases for PMS, and they are related to the types of users that can access data. On one hand, we have industry users, and on the other hand, we have regulator users or NCAs and EMA that can see data. And the difference between the 2 types of users is that industry users can see only the products that they are marketing authorization holder to, while regulators can see all the products. And within those
Andre,
products,
can you zoom in a little for us as well?
Is available. Yes, let me try to zoom in more. Is this better?
I think a bit, yeah.
Should I zoom in more? Let's try. Okay. So here in Postman, I have a configuration for setting up authorization based on the OAuth 2 standard. This is an industry-wide use standard for accessing API. And I've configured here the different information that would allow me to use this tool to then access the PMS API in a secure manner. And based on that information, I should be able to get a new bearer token, which is a concept in OAuth 2 for authorization. And for this, I need to log in. So I will first log in as an industry user in our test environment. And with a successful authentication, I will also have a bearer token that I can use for authorization when accessing the APIs. This is included for access in the authorization HTTP request header for any request. So here we have an endpoint that we showed in a previous demo where we can search products. This endpoint now is on a newer version of the API due to the fact that we have this type of authentication authorization approach. And due to the fact that we're sharing these endpoints and this API with our colleagues in the vet domain in the UPD project, we need to specify that we are looking here for the domain of human. This is the RMS term for human. And I'm also specifying, maybe it's easier if I show, okay, to zoom in, hid some things for me. So I have a query parameter to say I'm looking for human products, and I would like to see what is the count. And well, I made that request earlier, but let me make it now again. So I am an industry user, and out of the all the products that we have in this test environment, I'm able to see 589, which are caps and non-caps as well, loaded from XCV NPD. With this user, I should also be able to see its specific products with all the detail if I go to the next endpoint. In the meantime, let me just do a regular search here. And out of all these products, I will just take the ID of one of them that I'm supposed to be able to see. Here on the get by ID, I already have a previous test on the product that we will be updating. So let me just try to see if I have access to that one, but I shouldn't have access to it. This status, HTTP status, says I'm not authorized to see this product. So I'm an industry user that doesn't have access to this specific product. We will see it later on with a regulator user. So until then, let me just show you how we are able to see products that this specific industry user is allowed to see. So from the search set, I was able to take one ID, and this endpoint gives us all the information about this product based on its ID. Yes. So these were the endpoints based on an industry user, and I will now log in as a regulator. Okay, so now I have a new token that will be used in the requests made to these APIs. So let me just add this count a parameter to see how many products this regulator can see. So a regulator can see all the products that we have loaded, which is just roughly over 100,000 products for now. That includes both non-caps and caps products. And now this regulator is also able to see the same product that industry was able to see, as well as the previous product, which industry was not able to see. So this returns actual data, and the user is authorized to see everything. Yes, and that is all in all the use case for access management on the API level. So this is the product that we will demo to update from XCV NPD to PMS. Here we have its latest version in XML format. Let me switch to JSON, and then we can maybe have a nicer view on it. I will export this and show it in a HTML viewer. Sure, I load the latest version. Yes, so this is the product that we're going to see from XCV NPD. We are on version 13, last updated earlier this morning as part of our tests. And we will look specifically at updating the pharmacovigilance inquiry information email, which is now Pharmacovigilancia 1. And with this, Marcos, you can take over to show us XCV NPD and how you updated this product.
Thank you, Andre. So I hope you all can see my screen. So what Andre has just shown in this JSON viewer is how the product would look like all the information that we have right now in PMS. This is the same product in XCVMPD. As you can see here, we have the pharmacovigilance inquiry information, which is the same one that Andre has been showing. So what we will demo right now is what happens if I do an update on this product and I do a change on the pharmacovigilance inquiry information. So if I just delete, for example, did one, I will include here demo so we can all see it. And I make this change and I submit this update as part of my regulatory procedure. So I have had a variation, there is a change. In this case, we are just changing the pharmacovigilance inquiry information, the email, but we can change anything that is needed in the product. So I validate my message, I send it, and then when it will happen is that this message will be received by XCVMPD, we will process it, and then Andre will show us how this is updated also in PMS. So as I was saying before, this is just an example of an update. We are also working in different use cases. So we have, for example, nullification of products. We also have invalidation of products and also the updates. Actually, the updates are the more complex ones because, so for example, in the nullification, we can only, we are changing actually only one field, which is the authorization status. But for the updates, we can update anything in XCVMPD. So we can change the name of the medicinal product. We can change also the composition. We can do changes to indications, etc. So we need to do a bit more exercise. We need to define all the use cases and then how the deltas should behave when we have this information into PMS. So I was on version 18. I still need to wait until the message is processed. So the information will be now in PMS. So as I was saying, while we wait a bit, the idea is that in the next system demo, we can provide you with more information and we can show you, for example, what happened if I change the name of the medicinal product. When you see this information, for example, in PMS through DADI, if there is any change that you need to do to the name because it's wrong, to the marketing authorization number because it's also wrong, the procedure number or whatever, you can do those changes into XCVMPD. Those changes will be reflected into PMS, and therefore you will be able to see this also in the variation form. So now I already have this new version of the product. Let me, let me show you again the product so we can see that the new pharmacovigilance inquiry information has been approved. I have here the pharmacovigilance inquiry email with this new email. So I will hand over to you again, Andre, so you can show that hopefully that has worked out.
Yes, just to add more information while we wait for the processing. XCVMPD has processed that message, and then it is actually sharing it with PMS for further processing, where we transform it from an XCVMPD or an EDPRM message to FHIR, which we then ingest into PMS. And in the meantime, I'm also trying to share my screen. Okay, I hope this is visible now. So this was the previous version from an earlier test this morning. Let's see if the message has arrived in PMS. Not yet. And this is the exciting part of an integration demo. We need to wait a little bit for everything to process. So as I was saying, this is the part where PMS is now processing the message.
Yeah, and also maybe to add, so what we are doing here is a live update. So the idea is that any change that is done into XCVMPD, it's automatically sent to PMS, so we can see this update real time. We just need some time, so the XCVPRN message is processed and then it's sent to PMS, and PMS updates the product. So it might take a couple of minutes, but the idea is that those updates can be seen mostly on real time.
Yes. Thank you, Marcus. And in the meantime, the product has been updated in PMS. So we see now the latest updated. This is UTC time for 9:50 in Central European time. So let me save this response and then we can see it easier in the viewer. I will refresh so we can start from scratch. So it's the same product. I didn't show actually information before Marcos demoed, but this is Dolo Stop. And we now have the updated email information. So Pharmacovigilancia demo. And this is how XVMPD product updates will be integrated in almost real time with PMS. That is it, I think, from our side,
Yeah.
Marcos.
So thank you very much, Andre. If you have any question, you have the Slido. We will be monitoring it. So any question that you have, you can use this Slido. And I think, Emily, back to you, because we have already finished with our presentation.
Just a quick note with that, I wanted to remind everyone to switch to the new Slido code for questions specifically indeed on the R&D value stream and the emergency task force. So we'll be monitoring that. Of course, for any questions on PMS or data, you can keep using the other Slido. You can have multiple Slido screens open at the same time, no problem.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Ekaterina Gola, the product owner for the ETF project, and I will start with giving you a little bit of context. Could we go to the next slide, please? So the new regulation has established the Emergency Task Force, or the ETF, as an advisory group within the agency. And we're having the role now in providing scientific support and guidance in public health emergencies, as well as in advance of emergencies to ensure preparedness. And today we will focus on the scientific advice procedure. So the ETF is responsible for assessing scientific advices meant to address declared public health emergencies or scientific advices addressing emerging pathogens. A new addition to the scientific advice process is to include assessment of clinical trial, to include in the assessment process the trial experts from NCAs of the countries where the trial will actually run or where the sponsor intends to submit CTAs. And if we move to the next slide. Yes, thank you. I can then go further with the processes, explaining the processes. So the standard scientific advice will be handled by the scientific advice working party as it is now. And the clinical and the new, well, for the under the ETF will be then the scientific advices handling declared public health emergencies or emerging pathogens. The clinical part of the scientific advice is addressing these declared PHEs or emerging pathogens will be then possible to be set at a 20-day timetable, and deceleration is possible as well, and that is depending on the level of evidence or scientific advice provides or a submission contains on the workloads or the lack of urgency. As such, changes in the existing scientific advice submission process were needed. The initial and the follow-up scientific advice submission on the IRIS portal were will be amended to allow identification of these scientific advices in scope for the ETF. The next slide will show mock-up. Emily, the next slide, please. Thank you. This is a mock-up of the questions to be added in IRIS portal, but I will pass the floor to our Dynamics consultant, Ahmed Veci, to perform them demo.
Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. Now I will share my screen and proceed with the application portal for the scientific advice submissions. Can I possibly be made a host, co-host, or presenter in order to share my screen?
You're a presenter.
You're a presenter now. Oh, perfect. All right. In front of us, we have the portal. If we go to the submissions part, to open a new submission for ETF scientific advice, first of all, good to tell is that the ETF submissions are indeed part of the scientific advice submissions, with changes in the submission categories we've made, basically into the initial scientific advice human and follow-up scientific advice human, where ETF is specifically applicable. So when we create a new scientific advice submission, or basically any submission, we go over the same steps in order to create one. We choose an organization in step 1. And the second step is to choose the organization you're affiliated with and the location, of course. Lastly, choose a specific category. We choose initial scientific advice human, where ETF changes are applicable. And we go to the final step in order to have the submission created. As we all know, we can add here managers and contributors. For now, it's not needed. So let's proceed. So now we're here. First, good thing to tell is that no changes have been made on the forms. What we can see is that those are all the familiar forms for scientific advice. There have been no forms added or removed, but the changes we've made is mainly in the administrative information form itself. So let's visit that one. So for a submission, when we have chosen the initial scientific advice human or the follow-up scientific advice human submission category, we can see a section which is added for the ETF part. And that section is called the type of request. And this section just requests you to fill in additional information in order to determine whether scientific advice submission is indeed regarding an ETF or not. So the first question is regarding a standard scientific advice. You can select yes or no. The second question, is this a request for a scientific advice for a declared public health emergency, where you also have the URL or the link to the regulation itself. And the last question is this a request for scientific advice for a potential public health emergency? So there's also a distinction in that. When we select an option for, let's say, this is a standard scientific advice, when we select the yes, then you can see that the options for the declared public health emergency and potential are locked. And the same goes for the declared public health emergency. When we select this one, we can see that the standard scientific advice and the potential public health emergency fields are locked. And lastly, the same goes for the potential public health emergency, where we can see that we have no options when we select either of them. First, let's go to the declared public health emergency. When we select this as a yes, as you could see a second ago, we have fields which are shown up when this option is selected. We can determine the scope of the advice for this ETF submission further, whether it's a quality or whether it's regarding a quality or non-clinical advice, or regarding the main aspects of clinical trials and or protocol. The second field, which is added when we've selected the declared public health emergency option, is the public health emergency option itself. So when we click on the search, then the list is loaded with all the registered declared public health emergencies for the current situation. And this is, of course, a list which is maintained by EMA itself. So we will hopefully not see more options in the future. But if there are declared public health emergencies, then these will be registered here. So when we select one, we can see that we are finished registering the declared public health emergency information for the ETF submission we are gonna do. And now let's go to the potential public health emergency. Turn this back to a no. When we select the potential public health emergency as a yes, then we can see another list next to just other than the declared public health emergencies list, which is also maintained by EMA. And when potential public health emergencies emerge, EMA will register them in this list, in which the industry user can select from. And when we fill out further information into the submission itself, only the most relevant, only the last information, whether the declared public health emergency has been selected or the potential, only that information will be saved into the submission itself. And later on, you can, of course, change it. But if we fill out all this information and we go to save and return, then your last selected option will be taken into consideration into the submission. Ekaterina, back to you, please.
Yes, thank you, Ahmed.
Yes, thank you, Ahmed.
I would like to mention that for the that's for the ETF, we are setting up SharePoint sites to be able to share, to collaborate with the external users, and this is work in progress. A demo for this part will be available offline in a video mode. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and I'll give the floor back to Emily.
Yes, I think, good morning, everyone. That's me now. So I'm Jean Frère. I'm part of the EMA supply and availability of medicines and devices team. And I'm also the medicine shortages product owner under the monitoring value stream. So today, basically, we're going to be demoing a feature that we worked on the second quarter. And this has to do with the registration of an industry single point of contact, the so-called ISPOC within the agency's IRIS online portal. So I'll start by giving you a very short overview around this new registration requirement, followed by a very high-level description of the process before we demo it at the end. As Joris mentioned, also meanwhile, feel free to bring up your queries in Slido. The passcode is 1905902, again 1905902. So if you can please then just move to the next slide. Thank you. So according to the new regulation of DMA's reinforced role, so this is the new regulation for the agency 22123, we have all marketing authorization holders for all authorized medicines in Europe basically required to appoint a so-called industry single point of contact, the ISPOC, who can basically provide information directly to the EMA about information on supply and availability of critical medicines that are identified in the context of a major event or a public health emergency, such as, for example, the current COVID-19 pandemic. So all MAHs in the union now, irrespective of the licensing route, so this applies to both CAP holders and also NAP holders, need to register an ISPOC by the 2nd of September 2022, as further defined in the regulation. So what does basically this mean in practice? So in practice, the agency will use or uses the ISPOC contact list to enable a two-way communication with the MAHs for medicines that are included in the list of critical medicines that are adopted by the agency's executive steering group on shortages and safety of medicinal products during a particular health emergency or major event. So here, the main objective also with the setup and registration of these ISPOC contacts is really to enable the regulatory network to detect, report, and also manage or prevent issues that are related to supply and availability of these critical medicines. Now, when it comes to the registration itself, in order to fulfill basically these requirements, the MAHs need to identify their ISPOC via the MA's IRIS online platform. From today, Tuesday, 28th of June, MAs can start registering their ISPOC contact details in the IRIS platform. And in the next slide, basically, we're going to be having more information on the registration and also what is planned when it comes to communication for the start of this registration. So if we can have, please, the next slide. Thank you. So this is indeed a two-step registration process. So the first step is basically a preliminary requirement. So the users will have to create or need to create an EMA account and an appropriate role in IAM. So for any type of submission in the IRIS portal, the MAHs who do not have basically an EMA account need to create one first via the MA's account management portal. This is important because when it comes to the timelines, this is a process that can take up to 5 to 10 working days. And again, this information is actually particularly relevant for MAHs of nationally authorized products, which have not yet been exposed to IRIS submissions to date. So that's the first step. And again, it's a prerequisite in order to enable the IRIS submission of the ISPOC contact details. Now, the second step is indeed the IRIS submission itself. So when the MA account and also the role are set up, then the MH users can basically log in into the IRIS portal with the MA account credentials and then create a new submission for the registration of an ISPOC. So as soon as the registration of the ISPOC is submitted in the IRIS portal, the registration is basically immediate. Now, we're going to be making available guidance on how to register the ISPOC available on the agency's corporate website and also in the IRIS platform, together also with a video demo. Also, when it comes to communication, today the agency is going to be basically publishing a regulatory news item in the agency's corporate website to basically inform all MAHs also about the start of this new registration that again is now open in IRIS for MAHs to identify their ISPOCs. In parallel, we'll also be sending individual communication messages to all MAHs in the union through their QPPVs. When it comes to technical support, also important to highlight that for MH users, technical support is available through the agency service desk. So basically, this concludes now the introductory remarks when it comes to the high-level description of the process and also the next steps on communication. We have also prepared a short video demo that basically walks the users through the submission of the contact details in IRIS. So that video clip will be just played now, and I'll remain available to address also questions through Slido after the video demo. So Emily, would you be so kind as to playing the video demo? Thank you. So log into the IRIS portal with the EMA account credentials. Now you have to access My Draft Submissions, and this is basically present under the Submissions tab on the top bar. Now, basically, in order to be able to register an ISPOC, you need to create a new submission. So basically, taking into account the standard submission procedure, you have to complete the first step. And here, basically, you need to choose the applicant type form. So please select the organization and then click on the next button. Now, as a second step, you have in this particular submission type form to basically select the organization and the location ID to which you are affiliated to. Now, in the field submission type, you have to click on the search button, and here you have to select the submission type that is defined as ISPOC. Click on select. Now, in order to be able to further progress, click on the next button. Now, basically, the system does navigate the user to the next form, which is named Add Managers and Contributors. Now, for this particular ISPOC registration, there's actually no user action that is required for this particular form. So you can immediately click on the next button and basically proceed to the next screen. So now in the next screen, you have the possibility to click on the button that is labeled as Add Multiple images. So here the system basically will display to you the list of your affiliated organizations. So here basically companies that may wish to maintain a nice POC, for example, at company headquarter level, have the possibility to select multiple organizations. So basically select the organization for which you basically want to register your ISPOC at that particular organization. And now you can basically click Save and Next and move to the next screen. Now, basically after the selection of the organization, the system is basically prompt the user to basically select the ISPOC person. Here you'll have the list of basically all the affiliated users with a manager or with a contributor role that can either be selected as an ISPOC. So basically, again, you have a display of all the affiliated users for possible selection. So I just filtered a particular example, Iris Tester. So basically, I'm going to picking up one of these users as the ISPOC person. So I will select this individual record, and now I will click on Save and the next button. So now basically we get to the landing area where the user can update the ISPOC contact details. So here you can fill in all the additional information that is required when it comes to the contact details of the MAH ISPOC. So fields like a job title, also department and alternative email are actually fields that are actually compulsory in nature. Also in alternative, you have other fields that although not being compulsory, can also be filled in. Yeah, what is important to mention is the fact that in case some of the compulsory information is missed, basically the system is going to prompt an error message with the information that is compulsory that has to be basically populated. So all this information that's compulsory basically is marked with an asterisk. You can now click on the Submit button. And basically, the system does notify at this stage the user about the registration outcome. So there's this message basically that's displayed with an outcome with a particular summary screen message. So here, indeed, we can observe a valid ISPOC registration outcome because indeed, by selecting an ISPOC to an affiliated organization, this triggers indeed a successful outcome message. I will finalize by click on the return button, and basically another possibility to be able to visualize whether the register ISPOC contacts are successfully registered or not is by looking into this particular organization contact tab. And this concludes the video demo. Additional instructions on basically on how to register the industry single point of contact, in particular in line with the regulation 22123, is basically available on the IRIS guide for MAHs. Thank you. Thank you. So that concludes the video demo, and I hand over back to you, Joris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zhao. We have a bit of time to look at some of the questions that were asked on the different demos. We'll just start off with indeed some of the questions on product lifecycle management, most of which have an answer in writing, but I think we'll highlight a few then during this session. So the first one, which is just below the one giving us the advice to watch the session in HD, and we will be looking at how we can improve indeed the visibility and the size of what's shown on the broadcast for future demos. So thank you, Christine, for that comment. But the next question after that is from Marcus. asking, will these be different DADI user roles administered in EMA IAM portal, and must they be confirmed by the company's OMS industry super user? That's a question that I think, Noel, you can probably respond to. Noel, you're still muted, I think.
No, I think Noel, if Noel is busy, I can take that.
Okay, cool.
So the different user roles indeed are administered in the portal, and they need to be, and because the roles and the access is linked to the access management and association to a particular organization. So if you request to be a coordinator for a company that you don't actually work for directly, then that company's admin person would have to approve your affiliation. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there. Thank you, Christina. So there are different admins that can approve this. One is that the admin role itself needs to be approved by EMA. Now, if that is done, the contributor or application form, so any application form role is then being approved by either the IRIS/EF admin, so IRIS and EF have a shared admin, or if you have set up an organization admin, so a general admin for your organization, that one can also approve it. If none of them are set up and you request one of those roles, you will get an error message stating nobody can provide you access. Please set up an admin account first.
Thank you, Noel. The next question that we can already see on the screen is from Laurent. Can we combine roles for a given marketing authorization holder organization so as to be manager for some application forms and contributor for some others, still for the same MAH?
If I may, I take that one as well. So if you are different users, you can have different roles for different organizations, but the same user can only have one role in an organization. So one application role. It would not make sense for the same user to have access to products and also not have access to products. That's why the roles itself, they are from lowest to highest access, going to replace themselves. So you should only have one of them.
Thank you, Noel. Then we'll just move indeed on to Joseph's question. That is, when will the API become available for marketing authorization holders, and what role do we need in identity access management?
Okay, I think I can take that one. So the idea is that the API read access is not going to be granted for the moment, so not as part of this quarter. We need to check in the next PI if we can release this feature and we can give access to the different MA holders last quarter of the year or next year. So this is still under discussion. We are finalizing everything that is needed to give access to the applicants. So the answer that we can give for the moment is that at least in Q3, there is not going to be access for the PMS API.
Thank you, Marcos. Then for the next question, just checking with Noel and Christina. I think that's one very similar to Laurent's question before, isn't that right? Noel, Christina?
Yes, it sounds very, yes,
okay,
it's very
then we'll
similar.
just,
so I believe that was already answered, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then Dominic asks, will the IRIS industry admins automatically get EAF industry admin roles for DADI too, or is that separate?
So that we have merged these two roles. In the beginning, we have had different roles for EF admin and IRIS admin. It is now called IRIS/EF admin. So there is only one role.
Clear. Okay. We'll take a couple more, and then there's indeed one question that came in on the emergency task force. I've not seen questions come in yet on for monitoring. So indeed, feel free to put in questions for that as well. So we'll take a couple of more for DADI and PMS, then the one for Emergency Task Force, and then I'd invite everyone back to this DADI and PMS Slido, because we have 2 short poll questions for you about the demo itself. So the next question indeed is from Stefan, and that is, why isn't it possible for us to grant access levels to users from other organizations?
So, Noel, are you taking that, or should I?
I'm not sure I understand that one.
So,
It is possible.
if I understood it correctly, I've already responded in writing as well. Of course, you can't administer access for users from other organizations, because you may then give access to applications that you're not actually allowed to see. Of course, it would be very convenient if you have a user, if you're working together as a consortium and you would like another user from a different organization to have access, but then that could allow access to details that should not be shown. So it has to be approved. So the user has to be associated to both organizations. I don't know, Noel, if you want to add anything.
I'm not sure if this question wasn't meant differently. So you can give access to users from different organizations. Well, you give access to users. You decide what level of access you give to that user for your own organization, and the other organization decides to give, well, has a decision of what level of access they give to the same user. So each company decides for themselves what level of access they give to each individual user. It doesn't matter where you actually work for. The system doesn't care, at least. It's the admin who needs to decide.
Okay, and just to be clear, you only get that level of access for that particular organization that grants it to you, right?
Right.
Okay. Then we have another question from Marcus, and that says, maybe my question depends more on OMS generally. That's organization management service data, organizational data. How is it possible to see for me as industry super user a list with users and its roles for my company? Due to DADI, the number of users with roles will increase greatly.
So if you're a DADI admin or so EAF admin or IRIS admin, you can see your users. With regards to as an industry super user, we can certainly raise that with the IM team, but also, of course, you can raise a change request through the EMA service desk, and then you can track the status of your request yourself.
Clear. Thank you, Christina. Then just the final one that we'll take online for DADI and PMS is again from Laurent. What does it mean that MAHs will have to grant access in IAM with contributor role to a number of users from other companies to ensure proper working of work sharing application forms in DADI?
So yes, that is correct. If you want to do a work sharing with a user from another company, you give them the contributor role. If this is a one-time thing, because you do not want to give them access to your products. So the contributor role ensures that they will only see what is explicitly shared with them. And it is set up once, and then you can always share applications with them. You can decommission that role at some point in time when you no longer work with them. But if you forget to decommission that role, there is no harm done, because they do not get access to anything unless explicitly shared.
Okay, thank you, Noel. That's then what we'll cover online for DADI and for PMS. Every question that was asked, as far as I can tell, has a reply in the system, and we'll make sure that all those answers, indeed, such as they are shared as part of the package when we distribute the recording of this demo as well. So with that, we'll actually just verbally cover and just jump indeed to the R&D value stream for Emergency Task Force. And there's one question for Katarina and Ahmet. if you're ready for it. And that is that if I have filled in the information erroneously and clicked no afterwards, are all the entries lost or can they be retrieved still in the system?
Yes, I believe the person asking is referring to the fact that whenever you complete information at one step and you want to move, or you forget to move to the second step, if the information is lost. So whenever administrative part, for instance, is replied or completed and you want to go back, we advise to click on the save and return. There are actually two buttons. One is return only, and that one is save and return. So the save and return, of course, will save the entries, and the return will not save the entries.
Great, thank you, Katerina. Yep, that's the only question they need through Slido that we've received for emergency task force so far. Of course, indeed, if any other more questions come through, just send them through and we'll keep an eye on it. Then one question for Zhao on for monitoring and for shortages, and that is from Elizabeth. Has the ISPOC to be registered to an OMS organization or ID or a location ID?
Thanks, Joris, for the question, and thanks also, Elizabeth. Yeah, so indeed, the ISPOC has to be registered at the organization level. So once registered at the organization level, so only for the organization ID, it can then be applied for all the location IDs. But yes, the answer is registered at the organization level. Thank you.
Okay, and I just see that there's another question probably for you, Zhao, that actually popped up in the product lifecycle management Slido, and that is when have we to start requesting roles for ISPOC in Iris? So that's a timing question.
So as I mentioned just at the beginning, so indeed the start of the registrations comes into effect today. So that is now possible for all the MAGs in the union to basically register the ISPOC contact details, and also those requests for the registration of the MA account, or basically the creation of the MA account prior to the IRIS submission, are already also possible to be processed. So as soon as MAGs start registering the ISPOC submissions, obviously they need to meet the prerequisite, which is the creation of the EMA account, and that can be already done just now. I just mentioned at the beginning, when it comes to timelines, that whereas the ISPOC registration is an immediate sort of, let's say, registration, the creation of the EMA account and the role may take up to between 5 to 10 days. So there's that sort of consideration that has to be sort of acknowledged from a registration EMA account point of view. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Zhao. So we'll finish the live Q&A portion for this section. As we said, all the questions also have answers in Slido. A lot of you have already noticed that I've published a poll in Slido. That's the product lifecycle management Slido. So the hash 3954217, asking people indeed whether on a scale of 1 to 10 to please. Based on your experience with this demo, would you recommend system demo sessions to a peer? So indeed, the next one coming up on the, 28th of September, right, Jean-Michel? So please just give us your feedback there. I see 11 responses so far, so you'll have to jump from the Q&A panel to the poll panel in Slido in the top left. Okay. Okay, just waiting for those responses to come in. And then we'll have after that, we'll have a second question for you, just to on your advice on how we can improve the system demos next time. Okay, so keep on indeed scoring the rating poll. Then I'm just also going to open an open text poll where I will where I invite people indeed to also then just give us their advice on how to improve system demos indeed in the future. While people think of their answers for that, I also just wanted to thank all the product owners for their demos. Remind everyone indeed that the Q&As indeed are still open in Slido. You can actually extract them yourself in Slido, but we'll also make sure to share them. I'm also pleased to announce that the recording of this demo will be available indeed through on the corporate website immediately after this session. So you can rewatch it or indeed share it with colleagues right away as needed. Thank you indeed to all the viewers, also giving us your feedback now as we seek indeed to improve how we do these quarterly demos. Thank you very much. Also to the hosting team from the portfolio office on the EMA side. And with that, indeed, please keep the advice coming in, but we'll slowly move to a close on this end.
So thank you very much, Joris. So thank you very much to all the product owner, and I give you rendezvous to the 28th of September 2022 at 9 o'clock, same place, same time. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good day. Bye-bye.